Welcome. I'm J. Marty Cope, work on the music staff here at the church, and congratulations, you have chosen the best session. Don't tell anyone else who said that. But anyway, we're very happy to have Sandra McCracken with us this weekend for Winter Grace. She's going to share a little bit about creativity and community and various things related. Do a little singing. And then we'll look forward to tonight. There's a concert in the sanctuary. Tickets are free. If you don't have them, you can still get them online. Check them out at the Winter Grace website. And then tomorrow in worship, we're very grateful to have Sandra back. She'll be with us in the morning worship and then tomorrow evening as well. So, without any other comment, would you join me in welcoming Sandra?
Thank you so much. Well, I get nervous when I don't have an instrument right in front of me and just to do something in more of a lecture format. So I'd love to be interactive, to have you guys feedback. This topic of creativity, and I would even say kind of how creativity and community are so closely connected to one another. And I have been so formed in and around these ideas in both my work life and family life. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and I guess I'll start with a little backstory, which is that my dad was a cross-country coach and a teacher, and he would sing, but not a formal musician. But I learned a lot about creativity and community from watching him coach. He would coach cross-country runners and took these teams like one year after another. He formed a program in this kind of lower income area in St. Louis and built this program from scratch and went and said, can I start a cross-country team? And then he had this dynasty where they won state in Missouri year after year. And one of the ways by which he did this is not because my dad was the greatest runner. He was a very natural runner, ran during high school and college. But what he taught his teams was that running is a team sport. And so they're cross-country runners. They're out there by themselves. But there was something that was happening when they worked together, and they thought of their own winning and their own success as a team and not just as individuals. So that I was born during this era in my family life. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. And my particular area of interest was music from a really young age. But I didn't want to be up front. I just wanted to, dance in the living room or have the record player as loud as possible. And yet, it's like one step after another, I started to see creativity and community forming around music. And so fast forward, I go to college in Nashville. I've been in Nashville now for 30 years. I probably went to Nashville because I read the liner notes of all the albums that I listened to, and I was like, everything is happening in Nashville. What is going on with this place? And so, again, it's a place that is kind of known for the interconnectedness of people and relationships. People say, oh, the music business is all about relationships. And it's like, it really is. And not because you have to like schmooze your way in, but because we are made to, our creative lives are made to be interconnected. So I don't know where you guys are probably coming from lots of different backgrounds. When I travel around, I do find that people have different ways of thinking about creativity, and some people just they just opt out. Like, I'm just not a creative. I can't sing. I can't carry a tune. But I would say we are all, at this core level, creatives, just like my dad's teams, They may have not been the greatest runners, but they could work as a team, and they could win state every year because they did this thing together. And so I think that creativity goes very deep into the theology of the Bible that would say God as the one who has made us as image bearers from Genesis 1. He has imprinted his creative and his imagination on to us in our very nature. And so I think this is important to him, and he takes delight when we make things and when we move around in the world in our creativity. So thinking of that wider view of creativity, I think there are a lot of things that would hinder it, and that would say, just like that mental thing of saying, I'm just not a creative. You can be a creative and be a full-time caregiver. You can be a creative and be a teacher, an engineer. You can be anything you could imagine. And so I think as I kind of share some of these ideas, I might go back and forth and play little bits of songs, just because that is the mode by which I'm hoping to bring those ideas to you, is just to give you a minute, to give you some space to think about them. But I would start by saying our identity as creatives is because we are made by God in His image, and then in Christ, He has given us work to do and things to make. So Leonard Cohen has this song. I'd love to just play a little bit of it. And he's like a poet with a voice that's very scratchy. My kids are like, why are you listening to that music? Anyway, I love his writing, but Leonard Cohen has this poem that says, ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. And whether or not he realizes it, he's writing like a psalm of lament. It is like this thing that is saying, one of the things that hinders creativity is fear and anxiety. And you think about what it is to be a kid and to like get in the sandbox or to finger paint on the page. You don't care what it looks like. You just want to get in there and do that as a child. And so as adults, there's a call back to say, what does it mean to bring your imperfect offering, bring your limits, bring them to the God of abundance and say, what would you make? You know, Ephesians 2 says, we are Christ's workmanship. We are God's workmanship, created that we have work for. I'm going to read it because I'm saying it badly. We are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. And a room this size, you know, in a church like this one, where we've been hearing the Word of God, we have been invited by God to enter into this world and to go out these doors into the wider world to see what is it that God has put on your hearts. So my hope is that in this little time we have this morning, that the Spirit would do what He can do and what I could not do, and that is to stir your hearts toward what is in you to do, what has not yet been done, what collaboration could be imagined, what gathering invitation could you send to other people to bring people together to see the creative heart of God coming alive in the place where you've been planted. So I want to play a little bit of this Leonard Cohen song, and looks like Jim got everything set up. And just start here. And I think we enter into the light comes into the broken places. So we bring ourselves, we lay down the masks of performance, of any other hindrance, and we are invited here. The birds, they sang at the break of day. Start again, I heard them say. Don't dwell on what is passed away or what is yet to be. On the wars, they will be fought again. The holy dove, she will be caught again. Bought and sold and bought again. The dove is never free. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light get in. And I love his, it's a doorway. We'll play the full song tonight with the band, but I have found myself really arrested by the questions that the poet brings up in this song. And I think sometimes sometimes we don't want to look at it. We don't want to see it for what it is, right? And yet God is inviting us to go into these broken places, not only within ourselves, but that he enters into our brokenness and he becomes broken that we would become healed. And this mystery is at work in our lives, and it's at work in our songs. And so in order to do so, I think a big part of my writing and creative life over the years, by God's design, has been writing a lot of songs of lament. And this one is from Psalm 42, which is maybe my favorite psalm. But Psalm 42 goes back and forth like, here's my question, God. And then the chorus is, put your hope in God. There's a call and response. And brings us back to sanity. Why are you so full of heaviness? Why are you disquieted within? Oh, my soul. Oh, my soul. As the deer longs for the water brooks, so my soul then longs and thirsts for you. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Put your trust in God. I will yet give thanks to him. Put your trust in God. I will yet give thanks to him. Put your trust in God. I will yet give thanks to him. My help, my God. Deep calls unto deep like ocean waves. All your floods and rapids on me break. Oh, my soul. Oh, my soul. Put your trust in God. I will yet give thanks to him. Put your trust in God. I will yet give thanks to him. Put your trust in God. I will yet give thanks to him. My help, my God. My help, my God. The Psalm 42 and 43, I think they may have at one point been connected in the text, in the original text. But when I hear the back and forth of that, when I hear the question of like, can we bring our doubts? There's one of my favorite hymn writers, Ann Steele, that I think you guys have had Kevin Twitt come in and share with you guys more about these old hymns. But in the old hymns, and writers like Ann Steele, they bring with great courage and I would say creativity, they bring their heart before the Lord. And they do that in a way that becomes public so that we can share it. I have borrowed Ann Steele's words so many times when I needed someone to say, can you give voice to the questions that I have? And can you point me to the hope? And we keep going back to it, right? We keep going back to this refrain of hope. And I would say there are a lot of distractions and the things that hinder creativity for me. I thought of this illustration on the way over here today, which was, so you know, I have a rental car. You get in the rental car, I get the map because I don't know where I am. And then I don't know how to hook into the whole thing in the car. So I had it on my phone, and I put my phone in the middle. The map is going. It's talking to me. And then I make a left turn, and the phone goes way over there. So I'm listening. I'm like, okay, wait, stay in which lanes? Like, what are you saying to me? So all of a sudden, the voice of my phone is very far away. And there's a screen in front of me, but the screen is like blank, doing something else. And I think about, like, in our real lives, right, the spiritual formation, what God is forming in us, when it's like distant and I can't quite hear it and I don't know where I'm going. I literally don't know which lane I'm supposed to be in. And I think that is such a picture of what happens when I am not in touch and not hearing the voice of the Lord, not tuned into what He is, the way He speaks to us in His Scripture, through the voice of our trusted friends, and even through, like, sometimes some surprising ways, things that come up. Are we listening? Are we able to hear it? And so the spiritual practices that keep our creative life alive, and not just checking the boxes and paying the electric bill and doing the things. Like, I could keep driving down the road, but where am I actually going? Unless I have the map and I have the call and the voice saying, here's where you go. Here's how you get to Park City's Press, in this case. And I'm here, and I'm grateful. And but I think there are more than enough times that I am just, like, driving down the road, figuratively or metaphorically, in my life. And so I want to be tuned in. And I think and the reason that is connected is because if we are created by a God who has made us like Him, and He has put us in this world to go, and He has a plan for us. We are His workmanship, and that means He is actively at work with us. We are His, one translation would say from Ephesians 2, we are His poetry. And He's moving the words around. He has a vision of what that's going to look like. He knows the sound and the energy of those lines, the poetry of our lives, which is the whole point, is not just the poem at the end of the day. It is that He is at work, and He wants to be in our lives and interacting, and that we would participate with Him in this very real and relational way. So that creative heartbeat is God's heartbeat, that then when we go out to do a vocational thing, whether you're a surgeon or a teacher or anything else, it's not, we don't have to shelve that, but He is with us in it. And so then another, for me, I mean, I have an unusual job in that I'm able to do music. I'm so grateful that that's actually been my work life for the last 30 years. And when I think about, some of the greats like John Coltrane, who was a jazz musician and had an album called A Love Supreme. And he worked with a team of musicians that had played together live. And this, just as an example, he wrote this album, performed this album called A Love Supreme, hoping to, non-verbally, it's an instrumental album, hoping to integrate his faith with his music. And it's a very well-known album. It is gorgeous. It is spontaneous. It is rich with, like, harmonizations and depth and things that I cannot even understand in music, but I can feel it. And so when I think about that, and then I'm going to go over here and give you a quote from one of his bandmates. So NPR did a piece on this work, and they just talk openly about, like, this is his statement. This is his faith integrated into his music. This is what he said. And Coltrane, so it says, in fact, Coltrane gave very few verbal directions. One of his bandmates, McCoy Tyner, calls the album a culmination and natural extension of chemistry honed through years of playing together live. So you see, one thing about that music, this is McCoy speaking, one thing about that music is that it showed you that we had reached a level where you could move the music around. John had a very wonderful way of being flexible with the music, flexing it, stretching it. You know, we reflected that kind of thing. He gave us the freedom to do that. And we just thought of something, oh yeah, then we'll play it, And he said, yeah, here I have a feeling, And all that freedom just came together when we did that record. Which reminds me of 2 Corinthians 3. Now the Lord is the Spirit. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we all, with unveiled faces, behold the glory of the Lord, being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. I love that it says it. This is the Lord's work, the Spirit's work, and then it says it again, because I need to hear it twice. But I just see this correlation between the moments of improvisation in jazz music is a good analogy, even if you've never taken a deep dive into that kind of music. But to me, when you get into this, like beyond the things we understand, that's where the creative work is. Some people call it like the flow. You know, you're doing your job, it just flows. You know, you could be decorating a room. You could be taking care of young children. You could be in hospice with a loved one. And there is something so sacred that is beyond our verbal understanding of what creativity is. And God's touching all of his world in this way, and he's working with us. He is making something new. Do we see it? And I'm so grateful in music, because I feel like that is a place where it's hard to explain it, but I feel like I get to experience it on a daily basis when I play music with other musicians. And so my hope is that that translates into your real everyday lives. I might even just play a little hymn. But if you know, this is my Father's world. Let's see if I got. This is one, the second verse. He shines in all that's fair. This is my permission, right? He shines in all that's fair. This is built into our theology. Is that the goodness of God is the last word, is the first word, is the last word over all things. And the broken things, the places of lament, that will not be the last word in our lives. You guys want to sing it with me? This is my Father's word, and to my listening, all nature sings and around me rings the music of the spheres. This is my Father's word. I rest me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas, and send the wonders wrought. Your vocal warm-ups. We're right here in the choir room, you know? This is my Father's word. The birds their carols ring. The morning light, the lily white, declare their Maker's praise. This is my Father's word. He shines in all that's fair. In rustling grass I hear him pass. He speaks to me everywhere. This is my Father's word. Oh, let me ne'er forget that though the wrong seems oft so strong, God is the ruler yet. This is my Father's word. The battle is not done. Jesus who died shall be satisfied, and earth and heaven one. Yes. Well, it's good. I mean, it sounds like there's a dream, almost like there's something that's taken deep root for you that is continuing to become what it is, right? And I would love to talk more and kind of help shape that, you know. Ultimately, I guess I just want to affirm that He is calling something from you, calling forward something from you that is good and beautiful. And I don't know if it's something with that song or whatever, but I do know it's your story, and it's this thing of singing together. I mean, we could sing it together in here. We don't have any little kids, but we could sing This Little Out of Mine. I was just going to do a song about singing together, because I think what you're saying, I think, reminds me of like when I feel isolated in it, when I feel like I'm the only one in it, or that I have to coerce this from God. Like, you know, there's one song we're going to sing tonight. It's like, I'm holding on to you, you're holding on to me, you know, and we are really being held start to finish by God's love. And so I had one little note saying, identity in Christ is not something we achieve, but graciously receive. And I think that theme of like, okay, there's a spark, and I am eager to see what it becomes. Could I make this into a fire? You know, like, does this become something we can do? And the good news is, like, there might be like one idea of a project that's on your heart now. Maybe it's a song. But that God does want us to do this thing together and not have you alone in it. What's your name, by the way? Liana? Nice to meet you. We should talk more after. It's a song called Trinity Song, and if you guys would sing it, it's not This Little Light of Mine, but it's the same invitation, is that we are not alone in it. And in Him there is no darkness at all, right? He is, in His light we see light. And where there is light, it is cutting through the darkness. So I do wonder, what are the people and the places that you are called to? What are you being called to cultivate? And it could be like for a season, you know. So, Holy Father, Son, and Spirit, Holy Communion, three in one. Holy Father, Son, and Spirit, Holy Communion, three in one. Y'all say that one. Holy Father, Son, and Spirit, Holy Communion, three in one. Holy Father, Son, and Spirit, Holy Communion, three in one. Come with your peace. Come with your peace, with your invitation. Bind us together in holy love. Come with your peace, with your invitation. Bind us together in holy love. Holy Father, Son, and Spirit, Holy Communion, three in one. Holy Father, Son, and Spirit, Holy Communion, three in one, three in one, three in one. Beautiful. And the idea, I hope I'm making sense with that, but the idea that God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is He invites us in to relationship with Him because He is in relationship. He is in this dance, the delighting in one another. The Father, the Son, the Spirit. You see this all over in Jesus' words in the New Testament. He's like, Father, glorify yourself. And the Father says, I have glorified myself and I will do it again. And this whole thing, like, I don't even understand that. But I do know that in my clearest moments, that is where I am moved to go, right? To say, I don't understand exactly what's next, What do I do? Do I go left or right here? You know, what's the movement? What's the call on my life? And I see in those places in the scripture that we are really meant to do this together, to create these kinds of relationships where we keep moving toward each other. This is that we are in cancel culture, and you know, we are in times where people cut off loved ones, where it's just like, no, you're just not safe for me. It's like, well, yes, this is a very real thing. We should take that seriously, and that is the attack of the enemy that would say you guys should be divided, and there should, you know. But we know that Christ has come to restore all things, and that He brings death out of life, brings life out of death, resurrection power. So as we do this, I had this one little memory of being like my roommate and I were early 20s, like probably 21, 22, and we had this little apartment, and we started doing. It was just at the end of college, so everyone's kind of figuring out what does real life look like in community. And we started having like Wednesday night spaghetti dinners. I think we watched like The Sopranos or something at some point. But anyway, that wasn't like the spiritual part. But we did like sing and pray and care for each other. And we just made these simple spaghetti dinners. And it was so unifying because we were trying to figure out how to make life together as believers, as followers of Jesus. And those friendships were rich, and they're still a big part of our lives, even if we don't see each other. So some of the things you might be called to do in this season won't be forever. Obviously, that would not work in my life right now, to have big soprano watching spaghetti dinners on Wednesdays with, you know, all the things going on. But for a season, right? Maybe you just pick up something and say, let's just run this for, like, who is on my heart to invite? What are the things that God would call me to make? If it's a piece of music, if it is could be anything. And let God widen the idea for us in our imagination to know what creativity could look like. Okay, I've been talking so much. Do you want to engage? Like, you want to lead us a little bit in Q&A?
So then
Okay.
we're going to kind of turn this into a conversation, and I'll throw out a couple of questions, and we can open the floor. We'll probably go till about noon, just because we had a little late start with the earlier session running a little long. Can you guys hear okay? Do you want to do the microphones? Maybe. You're fine? Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Now I'm nervous.
No. I was just trying to play off this a little bit. You talked a little bit at the beginning. I just want to affirm this idea about how you view yourself. And you see a session for creatives, and you think, oh, I'm on the outside looking in. I'm not a creative, but I'm interested in the creative process or whatever. Or you might say, well, I'd like to become one, etc. We were talking a little while ago. There's this guy named David Kelly. He's a design guy. He helped design the mouse for the computer with Steve Jobs back in the day. And he runs a school at Stanford called the D School. And his theory is that everybody is a creative. And his proof of that is the kindergarten classroom. Because you go into a kindergarten classroom and you say, how many of you are creatives? And they all raise their hands and they want to show you their work. But then he goes on to say that over time, that kind of gets squelched out. And so I'm going to ask Sandra to comment on this. He writes, in our experience, everybody is the creative type. Go to a kindergarten class, like I said, they're going to show you their project they're working on, but by about age 9 or so, people opt out of thinking themselves as creative. Something happens. A teacher says, that's not a very good drawing, or you can't do that very well, play the piano or dance or whatever it is. For some reason, that negative critique really sticks with us, and people opt out of thinking themselves as creative, and they go about their lives saying that. And so by the time they get to adulthood, it's pretty ingrained. So how do you think about that as far as encouraging everyone to realize that in some way, and it might not be as a musician or as an artist.
It's a more obvious creative.
So how do the synapses kick in for creative for everybody, no matter where you are?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some correlation between if we think of our there's some correlation between our spiritual lives and our creative lives. And I think that's what I'm trying, and I don't know if I have clarity on how to explain that. But so if your vocation is something that does not seem very creative, where you just have a list of things you have to check the boxes, there may be other outlets that you could explore your creativity through gardening or baking or some form of hospitality, something that you do kind of think of in those categories. And then my hope is that, and based on this theory, which I totally agree with, we're all creatives, that that awareness that you have of like, oh, this feels creative, right? Something happened in the garden I wasn't expecting, and there's interplay, this is like my hands are dirty. There's like engagement that's going on when you're gardening, that then when you go back into your vocation, your job that doesn't feel creative, you start feeling like, oh, wow, there's that creative thing. I feel that other part of my brain waking up because I think it's in there, Same with parenting. I mean, there are stages like when my kids were little and you're just like, you feel like you're losing your mind because it's also kind of, there's not a lot of rational thinking for toddlers. And for a period of your life, you're like, I don't know how to have a conversation for this season of my life. But it's highly creative. It is so highly creative. And I think trying to affirm that in one another and draw those correlations to where we're socializing the idea that, oh man, trying to figure out how to motivate this child to get from the car seat to the zoo entrance, that is a creative act. So I think affirming creativity in one another in different vocational spaces or seasons of life is part of the socialization of what we're talking about. It's like how to say we are all creatives, and how do we lean into that and support one another in it and encourage it.
But you used the phrase "already there." So as Christians, we believe that we have stamped in us the image of God. And David Kelly, who's not a believer, he would say it this way. He said, when we started this school, I thought we were going to teach creativity, but it turns out you don't have to. All we really have to do is remove the blocks that are in the way of that creativity. So,
that's so good.
As believers, we see that as that's the Imago Dei. That's God's image that's stamped in us. And it's not like you have to go digging to create something. It's there in us somehow.
That's so good. That reminds me of the 2 Corinthians passage. Did I read that yet? About basically to see the glory of God, we remove the mask that we put on, the mask of performance or fill in the blank of whatever mask we put on. When we remove the mask, we see the glory of God through His grace and means of grace, and then we are changed and more into His likeness. So it's not that we have to put on, some new thing, but we are just like getting more, like there's less between us, right? And then we are changed into the image of God, which is creativity at its very source.
Kind of playing off some of these discussions here, I think we often see the Inklings is this fully formed fellowship of perfection that like met every week at the pub and discussed these literary works, and they all were these giants. And we see that, and sometimes we can see with Andrew Peterson in the Rabbit Room, just this perfect warm cocoon of fellowship. But then what are all the steps kind of before you get there? In other words, like I think a lot of us would realize we're isolated in a lot of ways, and we're not going to step into a fully formed fellowship of perfection that's going to help bring forth some artistic things. And so what are the maybe baby steps or the small, I love the spaghetti dinner idea, but what are the small things in front of us that we might be able to do even one-on-one to start along that path, even though we might not be able to jump into a fully formed artistic cocoon?
Yeah, so many of the moments, when you look at your pictures on your iPhone, you're like, oh, that was so great. Like we look back at things and there's this just like the romanticism of the picture. But in the moment, you were probably freezing, you just had an argument, like whatever. Like that's what I think of when I think of the fellowship. It's like, it's real life. And so can we try to be more aware in the moment that God is with us. He is at work in our midst. And then we become, it's like you put yourself in the real moment that we're living. And I think that takes a lot of practice. And I think that you see a lot of the great writers in the church, all of different strands of the church that are trying to practice in the presence of God. And
that really does change our perception of the work that God is doing in our midst. Because he's already going to be working, but whether or not we're paying attention, whether or not my iPhone is way over there and I can't hear it, that idea of like the car, being in the car and it's so distant, right? Like, I don't know, where am I going? What am I doing? So I think getting, reconnecting to the source and then beginning to draw ideas and follow them.
When you first got started and you had some songs and you wanted either mentorship or maybe a colleague, what were some maybe practical ways where you tried to get some feedback or some interaction with either a master or a colleague you really trusted? How do you initiate those interactions?
Well, I think I would, like I mentioned, being the youngest child in a big family, I think that that gave me kind of a teachable, I didn't get to make a lot of choices about where we're going to go, what we're going to do. I'm the youngest. You're just like, we're going, this is what we're doing. So I think I learned to just kind of go with the flow from when I was a kid. And then when it came to music formation, I was paying attention. Like if I go hear a musician, like I remember going to hear Leo Kodke and he was playing guitar in this little random warehouse in Chattanooga. And I went home and took notes. I was like, okay, he did this, this, and this. I cannot believe I've never seen that. Right. So I would try to pay attention to things, just noticing things. And then some of those things I think God has really used to shape my work. Yeah.
Well, why don't we open the floor for a couple of questions? We'll run up till noon. Does anybody want to? Okay, we'll go over to here. Let me start here, and then we'll go to Robert.
Okay. I have a question with Sandra. I wanted to thank you for using your gift to create such beautiful music. Because in my life, in 2024, I'm going through a series of very grueling profound therapy sessions after a full year. And all day while I was working there, I listened to your album songs. And just feel my heart was gladness that I could, after I was done working, drive to the approach center, place, get that, be totally exhausted. But your song, I will let my work down, will be the house dry on. It's been kind of a way to get me through that season. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I do a food Bible a year thing. I was in Exodus this morning actually, and God gives Moses all these detailed instructions about how to do the tabernacle. And then he says, there's two guys that I've given the gift of construction, and another guy a gift of embroidery. And this is an artist. And Tripp's point was that he has all these instructions are crazy detailed. God put it in people's, gave these guys the ability to do what he wanted to have them do, and he called them the King Moses. So people brought all the stuff, and then they did it. That's long story short. These were creatives and a construction guy and an embroidery guy. Not performing artists like yourself. There are lots of ways God has created to accomplish his goals. That was really beautiful.
So beautiful.
Reinforcement you were saying, there's a lot of ways to have this.
Really beautiful. Thank you.
So I'm wondering if you maybe put off an idea or something that has sparked your imagination. Like for example, I feel like I have a lot of different ways that I have expressed myself in the past art and poetry, but I haven't in years. I've had children, and I wonder if you've gone back to ideas you haven't acted on, and how do you go back to ideas you haven't expressed yet? Like you haven't written that poem, you haven't written that song, you haven't written that music, and the idea is 5 years old.
Yes. Well, I resonate deeply with that in different seasons of life. And I had a friend, my friend Nina Andrews had this great, she's a painter, therapist, does a lot of different things. and a mother, but she would say, it's like you just put it down for a nap. Like you just, you have a project or an idea, you just put it down for a nap. You wake it back up. And I've seen her actually do that, but that phrase has stayed with me. And I do think what is good, what's exciting, and what I would say as I look back is that these other creative exercises, just like I said about like getting a toddler from the car seat to the front of the zoo, I mean, that is a creative practice that then will shift back into your poetry or fill in the blank. And it does transfer. And so the energy that is you're spending, the wisdom that God is working in you, that he's calling upon, is just like in waiting. And it will burst forth in the new time when he calls it forward. And honestly, he's the one who wakes things up, doesn't he? Like he's like, now it's his time, right? And I think the thing that loosens our hearts, going back to this conversation we're having, is like, you don't need to be anxious about what will come when it's called forth, but that he's put it in us and he's stewarding it. We are the workmanship, but we're not just like, a piece of clay on the table. He is like, the heat of his hands is actually warming us and shaping us because he delights in us. And so it's so much more than him just like having a bunch of trophies on the wall. It's like he is just deeply involved in your creative work and your life and what he's putting in. And so I think it's kind of on him, and I don't think he's going to let anything that he wants to speak of our lives go unspoken. And that is just such a freeing thing. And going back to John Coltrane, what his band experiences is freedom. The freedom is like when you are just feeling like, man, if I know the goodness of God, know his presence, and then he calls these things out one day at a time. And there are some days I'm so frustrated because it's like, this thing did not get done. This project I really want to get to is the last thing I can get to. But when it's time, it'll just flow straight out, So, I really have seen it in my life. I just know he knows what he's doing. But thank you for the question. I feel that with you.
Maybe one last question somebody has or comment.
Are there any spiritual disciplines or practices in your life that have given something from an idea?
Oh, that's great. Some really practical things. This is going to sound real nerdy. I learned, my husband, who you meet, Tim, he'll be here later today, but taught me about like time blocking. Oh my gosh, it changed my life. So it's super right brain creating, but I really need structure. In fact, was working with I'm working with a friend and producer who I've known for 30 years, and he's like, what happened to you in the last, like we hadn't worked together in a while. He's like, you're so structured, you're like taking notes. But I have to get organized about some things. So time blocking and saying, okay, I'm going to block these times. And then they move like a bunch of times. Like a lot of times they get bumped and it doesn't happen the way I think. But at least I know, okay, I wanted to set aside these 2 hours. And part of the blocking of time means one of the practices that's really given me a lot of sanity in the last few years is just getting up early before the rest of the family. Maybe for you it's like get another time, but I really need the solitude because I'm very porous and I respond to everybody else's needs, and I don't even remember that, it's just like, that's my default. So I really need the solitude to give me enough mental space to do the creative work. And then one of them is just like trying to take the time. Now, it seems like Dallas is a place where people get stuff done. So you are a fast-paced city. You have to know that about yourselves. You mentioned that, like the description of like you get out of bed.
You fall out of bed in the morning and it carries you.
Yeah. So that's just a feature of your city and your life here in this city. Nashville's a little more laid back. You're somewhere on the way to like being New Yorkers, in that way. But like New Yorkers the same way. It's like there's just no downtime, and so you have to create. Try to buffer it, try to protect it, and be really intentional about it. So that's really helped me. And the other is just listening, prayer, like just taking time where I'm not trying to study something, but I'm just like just extra time, just where there's like, I think our phones are really tough to push back against because, and the phone's not the problem. That can be used for all kinds of good things too, but the distractions of those things, and I realize it takes me, it's like if you come to a quick stop, everything in the back seat comes to the front. You're like, wait, where did all this stuff come from? So solitude and like creating some space is really essential for a healthy creative life.
Thank you. Well, thanks for being with us this weekend. We're looking forward to tonight. Hope to see you guys tonight and then tomorrow in worship, both in the morning and the evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you all.